Good evening, everybody in the room and wherever else you might be watching. I'm Richard Perloff, and the last time I was here, we had a little chat about Shakespeare's comedies, and tonight we go all the way to the other end of the spectrum to talk about one of Shakespeare's major tragedies, right? The big four: Hamlet, Othello, Lear, and the Scottish play. Now, I have some notes that I will refer to from time to time, but I'd much prefer that this be more of a conversation than a lecture. So if you have questions, comments along the way, just put a hand up and we'll address them. I'm good either way, trust me. Trust me, you hit the on button, I can talk about this play for hours, and I have. But here's one thing I can guarantee you. I don't know exactly how this little talk will progress, but one thing I can guarantee you is that that was the one and only time you will ever hear me refer to it by this ridiculous name. This is the name of the play. All right? That's the name of the play. His name is Macbeth. And I'm going to say his name over and over again, and I'm going to quote from the play all night long. And if you've got a problem with that, the exits are very clearly marked. It's the silliest thing. It's the silliest club. You don't want to belong to this club. Now, Mike will tell you, Mike Murdoch was in the production of this play that I directed a lifetime ago. And I believe that one of the first things, maybe the first thing that I said to the assembled cast on the first night of rehearsal, I said, the first person who wastes 10 seconds of our precious rehearsal time with curse nonsense is out. Out. I mean it. It's the silliest thing. Why is it a curse play? Why? Anybody? Anybody know why even people want to play this ridiculous game? Go ahead.
Well, it's got a lot of swords and stuff in it, right? So there have been historically a lot of injuries.
Okay. Now Chuck has kind of leapt to the correct pronunciation here. But look, we have witches and supernatural stuff is going on. Well, so there's a ghost running around in Hamlet. The ghost of Caesar is in that play. You never hear about the Dr. Faustus curse, for goodness sake. Mephistopheles is running around for 2 hours. Why is it a cursed play? Well, James VI, Shakespeare's great patron, had an interest in the supernatural and blah, 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 blah. So what? I mean, the Elizabethan literature is replete with references to the supernatural. So curse? No. It's a tragedy, which means that there is violent death happening on stage. Lots of swords. Yeah? Swords, daggers, you name it. Yeah? And much of this play takes place in the dark. Violent murder in the dark. Yeah. So if you want to advance the position that there is a marginally greater likelihood of mishap on a production of Macbeth than, say, The Odd Couple, I'm not going to argue with you. I'm not going to argue with it. That's probably right. But the whole curse thing is ridiculous. It's ridiculous. It is what it is. It's a tragedy. And yeah, when swords are flying around, stuff will happen. Okay, enough of that. Now, the clever name that I came up with for this little talk was Macbeth, a checklist. So here's what I intend to do. I'm going to try to avoid advocating for any particular interpretations of this play. I've seen a million productions of Macbeth, and they run the gamut. So there's no lack of interpretive opportunities. I have some very strong opinions about the play that I will drop in as they seem appropriate. But without advocating for particular interpretations, I have developed over my long history of this play, and I mean long. I've been in it a couple of times, I've directed it, I've taught it I don't know how many times in many different contexts. The most recent time I taught it, I came in to a film class that was doing a segment on film adaptations, adapting films from other sources, and I was there to help them understand the text better so that they could evaluate what the filmmakers had done. Yeah? So we've seen, who's seen Kurosawa? We've seen his version, Throne of Blood. We've seen Polanski's Macbeth. Good, really good. Anybody see the Fassbender, Marion Cotillard version? I'm going to talk a little bit about that, because that film, for me, had one moment of absolute brilliant genius to it. Then it kind of went downhill, but okay. And then most recently, of course, we had Denzel Washington and Frances McDormand, which I thought had a lot of good stuff to it. Anybody get the blown line in that movie? I'll come back to it. There is an absolute howler in that film version, and it stuns me. I mean, if somebody goes up in the context of a performance, I can understand that. But this is a film, which means that you could have reshot it. And it means that the actors and the director and all the tech people and the editors and everybody who saw it before it went out into the theaters could have fixed it. It's bad. I'll come back to it. Anyway, so lots of different versions of this play have I seen. And over the years, what I've kind of come up with is this list, this checklist of things that I go looking for when I go to see a performance of Macbeth. And again, it's not a matter of whether they agreed with me. I want to see how they wrestled with these particular issues. They seem to me to be fundamental to an understanding of the play and fundamental to putting up any kind of a cohesive production of the play. Okay, where do we start? Well, we start with the witches. We start with the witches. Here's our supernatural element. Or is it? Or is it? I mean, I think yes. I think yes. I don't like the play if the witches are not supernatural. But I've seen productions where they go to great lengths to make them seem like just, like beggar women. Just like, old ladies who I don't know, they follow the wars. They loot bodies. I've seen this. They loot the corpses of soldiers. And they're privy to some battlefield gossip. And this is what they lay on Macbeth and Banquo. But what are they? What are the witches? And more to the point, what's their purpose? What is their purpose, and what are the limitations of their abilities in this world? Anybody? What's their purpose? Going back to the production that I directed that Mike was in, I remember this very distinctly. We were sitting around the table. We did a couple of evenings of table work. It's that kind of a play. You just got to sit and talk. Everyone needs to sort of understand everything about it before you start staging it. And you know that actors speak in terms of objectives and intentions. This is important for all of us. So I posed the question to the group, and to the witches in particular. I said, what's your intention? What is the witches' intention, right? What are they trying to accomplish? Anybody got thoughts about that? What are the witches, what is their intention?
Set up.
Say again?
Set up, like setting up the world.
Why?
Issue.
Why? To what end? Okay. Say again?
It comes back full circle at the end. Their prophecies filled out. So it just.
But why did they get that ball rolling? What were they trying to do? Anyway, one of my witches, said, I think that the witch's intention is to piss off God. I've never heard a better. I've never heard a better. I like it. I like it because that's what they are. They're agents of chaos. They are about the destabilization of this community, this civilization, this society. And Macbeth is their agent. Now, the really critical question is, what can they do and what can they not do? And to me, this is a make or break for productions of Macbeth. I've seen a number of productions, and if I ever direct it again, I'll crib this, I'll rip this off. It's fair game. There's nothing new under the Shakespearean sun. I saw a production at the Oregon Shakespeare Festival many years ago, and it took me a while to realize it was going on. It was probably happening from the get-go, but if you actually were looking for it, there was a witch in every scene. Somewhere in the space, there was a witch observing, which was kind of cool and kind of creepy. They were there in the shadows. You could barely see them. And like I say, I didn't pick it up until well into the play. There was a witch observing. Well, yeah, they want to know. I think that makes sense. They want to know how this is playing out, this thing that they've set in motion. Let me give you another example. This is on the wrong side of the ledger. I saw a production recently where, if you can imagine the set, there was an area in the down left. It looked like a big kind of a planter. It was like this big kind of hollow space, and the witches would come up out of that. And they were all kind of clumped together, the three of them, but they would come out, and there were lights and stuff going from underneath, and they would writhe around, and they looked kind of cool. But in the scene immediately following the murder of Duncan, the scene at the castle where the alarms are going off and everyone's running around the stage yelling and screaming in various stages of undress, and people are trying to figure out what has happened, there's a moment in that scene where Lady Macbeth faints. It's not insignificant. And in this production that I saw, she was down by the planter, and the witches were up in the space, and one of them reached out and touched her leg, and she fainted. That's it, you lost. That's it, you lost. If the witches make anything happen, it's a different play. We get this, right? It ceases to be a tragedy. If the witches can touch Lady Macbeth and make her faint, well, then they can touch Macbeth and make him kill people. In which case, Macbeth and Lady Macbeth are not responsible for what they do. They're no longer tragic, they are pathetic. They have become puppets and instruments of some nefarious power. That's not good. That's not Shakespearean tragedy. Shakespearean tragedy is where we witness people suffering the dire consequences of their decisions. So the witches can insinuate, they can hint, they can entice, they can cajole, they can do all these different things, but they cannot make anything happen. That's job one. Don't let us understand that the witches are turning the crank here, or else we're out of the realm of tragedy as I understand it. Okay, witches. There's an interesting scene in the play. Macbeth goes back to see them again later in the play when he is well along his path into paranoia. He says, I'm going back because I need more information. And they show him those apparitions. That's a very interesting scene. Again, they're not making anything happen. They're just kind of showing him what he thinks. You know that you need to be aware of Macduff, right? You know that Malcolm might be a problem for you. I've seen a number of productions. I think Polanski did this, where the witches actually, that stuff that they're cooking up, the double toil and trouble stew, they actually have them drink it. I kind of like that. I kind of like visions, kind of like apparitions, because that really kind of demonstrates that they're coming out of Macbeth. He's seeing those visions. We see him see them. I saw a production. We haven't talked really about what the witches look like. They look like anything. The answer is anything. Are they just like old crones? There's some descriptive information in the text. Withered and so worn in their attire, your beards forbid me to say that you are women. I don't know what that means. But I saw a production, not the only one that I've seen, where we had a male witch, and in the apparition scene, the male witch started convulsing and he would double over, and the other witches were on either side of him, and then he would sort of rear up, and they lifted his shirt up, and the apparitions were actually projected onto his chest. That was pretty cool. I mean, there's another reason that, you know, that the play is cursed. It's because there are very often pyrotechnics in this show, right? So stuff can catch on fire.
Production where they did little girls, right?
RSC.
The Royal Shakespeare did one with children.
I was talking, before I came here, I had a chat with a former teacher of mine whose acumen I greatly admire. And he sent me a video clip of his production where his witches were bunraku puppets. So we had actors all in black manipulating these puppets. It was striking. It was striking. And they were on these like fishing pole type things, and like with a touch of a button, they could fly up in the air, right? So like hovered through the fog and filthy air, they actually like went out over the audience. I mean, there's just there are no limits to what you can do here. I'll share with you what I did, and I kind of ripped this off from another production that I'd seen. In the show that I directed, we began in the dark with the witches doing the When Shall We Three Meet Again? So you heard that, you know, reverberated and all, you know, crazed in the audio. And then we brought in the sounds of like just like this horrific battle, clashing swords and horses neighing loudly, and, you know, human screams. And when the lights began to come up on the stage, what we had here were a bunch of body bags, and there were soldiers kind of bagging up corpses and stacking them. Duncan came on, surveyed the scene of the aftermath of this battle. We had the bloody soldier speech, and then here come Macbeth and Banquo, right? So foul and fair a day. And then the witches emerged from the piles of corpses. Right? Yeah, right? Zombie stuff. I love it. George Romero, right? Anything goes, witches, as long as you observe, right? It's the prime directive. You don't go to Talos 4, and the witches can't make anybody do anything, right? Those two. Okay. Let's talk about Macbeth. Here's another thing that I'm looking for. Who and what is Macbeth at the beginning of the play? Who and what is he at the beginning of the play? And this is what we're talking about. What have I drawn here? Let's say this is a character arc. So here's the beginning of the play, and here's where we end up. As an actor, you're always looking for your character's arc, the journey through the play. And what makes best sense is to try to craft the longest possible arc in the play, the most interesting journey through the play. So does Macbeth start the play as a guy who is ambitious for the throne and will do anything to become the king? That's not good. That basically starts about here. Well, we don't want to do that. What happens at the beginning of the play? Macbeth primarily, but Macbeth and Banquo, the two great captains of Scotland's army, they put down a rebellion from within and without. I mean, this is bad. I mean, go parse through the bloody soldier speech. You know, we've got the Norwegian lord, and we've got the merciless MacDonwald. He's the guy that gets unseamed from the nave to the chops. So we've got rebellion from without, and then we've got the Thane of Cawdor, who is traitorous from within. It's bad. You know, doubtful it stood, says the bloody soldier, until Banquo and Macbeth hit the scene, and they save the day. So here's the beginning of our arc. This guy is the great savior of this society. He has preserved Scotland, and in particular Duncan's reign through his actions, and he's being amply rewarded for it. Man, we don't know that at the beginning. It's coming. It's not going to take long. But see, this is where I think you begin. If you're Macbeth, you know, if you're doing eyebrow stuff right off the bat, you've truncated your arc. Why would you do that? Start as the great hero, right? And then feel your way. Doesn't take long. The witches come on and they say, "Hail to thee, Macbeth, hail to thee, Thane of Glamis." Okay, well that's standard issue. That's what he is. That's his title at the beginning of the play. He's the Thane of Glamis. Hail to thee, Macbeth, hail to thee, Thane of Cawdor. Whoop! Oh, wait a minute. How's that? That doesn't make any sense. If you're Macbeth at the beginning of the play, that makes no sense. He has no way of knowing that the Thane of Cawdor has been condemned and is under a death sentence for his traitorous activities. Hail to thee, Macbeth, that shalt be king hereafter. What do you want to do with that? I mean, so does that take you from here to here? Let's go here. Because, I mean, what's Banquo's response to the witches? He thinks they're hilarious, or at least benign, non-threatening. He says to Macbeth right off the top, "Good sir, why do you start and seem to fear things that do sound so fair?" Okay, well that's a stage direction for Macbeth. Start and seem to fear. Banquo walks right up to him and says, "Okay, if you're fortune tellers, read my fortune. That neither beg nor fear, your favors nor your hate. What do you got for me?" And they lay a couple of prophecies on him as well. So, I mean, I think if we're Macbeth, we're taking the first baby step. They said I could be king. It's interesting. And then who comes in? Then we get Ross. I've played Ross. I have no idea who this guy is. I honestly don't. Although I have to say that filmmakers seem really enamored of Ross. Both Polanski and Joel Cohen wanted to turn Ross into some like evil Dr. Doom supervillain. I don't know where they get that. To me, Ross was, when I played him, I mean, Ross he's a messenger. He delivers news, and basically he's there to tell people when somebody died. That's when he shows up. But he comes in, and what does he say to Macbeth? He says, "The king says, give you this, and now you're Thane of Cawdor." Whoa! Boom! Now we're on the move. And Macbeth says so in one of his first little asides. I don't think we want to call them soliloquies yet, right? 2 truths are told as prologues to the swelling act. I mean, these witches, they seem to be dialed in somehow. But I don't think we really start accelerating here until we get to the scene where Macbeth and Banquo show up to Duncan, to the king. Because what does he do? He does 2 things. First of all, he says, "You 2 guys save the day. And believe me, I'm going to be taking care of you. I've begun to plant thee and will labor to make thee full of growing," he says to Macbeth. "Good things in store for you, young man. And Banquo, you too." Yeah, Banquo, yeah. And then he says, here comes the accelerator. Then he says, "By the way, since we've got all of you in the same place, you ought to know that I'm prepared now to announce my successor, and it's," and Macbeth probably takes a step forward like, "Yes," and it's Malcolm, my son, whom we hereafter name the Prince of Cumberland, and now we're out here. Now we're out here. How do I know that? Because Macbeth says so. He says, Macbeth says, "The Prince of Cumberland That is a step on which I must fall down, or else o'erleap, for in my way it lies. Okay, there's no getting around that. Now it's on the move. Okay, but still, significant ground to travel between here and here. So Macbeth's character arc, you know, if you're the actor of Macbeth, if you're engineering this play as a director, keep him off of that for as long as you can. Let the arc be gradual. I want to talk about this. I don't know where this will take us. I want to talk about Macbeth's relationship with Lady Macbeth at the top of the play. Where do you think we're at? And here's where I'm going to make a reference to the Fassbender Cotillard film. Anybody see that film? Anybody see it? Do you remember the first scene of the film? It was a funeral. It was a funeral of a very tiny person. That's why you're holding, or you've got a copy of Act 1, Scene 7. It's my favorite scene in the play. We'll come back to it. I'm gonna really drill down into it in a little bit. But I thought that was just absolute genius to start the film in that way. Macbeth addresses Lady Macbeth. She reads the letter, right? She reads the letter that he sent her, talking about his encounter with the witches and what they prophesied. And then she has her amazing speech where she says, oh yeah, that's all gonna happen, and I'm gonna help, right? But I fear thy nature, she says of her husband. I fear thy nature. This is the guy that just like slaughtered 9,000 people on the battlefield. She says, I fear thy nature, 'tis too full of the milk of human kindness to catch the nearest way. Okay, but she knows her man. She goes, I'm gonna make it happen. Then she has her little, you know, you spirits that tend on mortal thoughts, unsex me here business. And witches can be present in that scene. I've seen it. But the way I conceived it was that there was a chill in this relationship. Again, I'm looking for the longest possible arc. So when I spoke to my actors of the central couple here, I said, something's off. Something's off between these two. I reckon she spends a lot of time alone. He's got battles to fight. He's got a job that he has to travel for. But there's something that's not quite in sync between them. But now, here's the thing. Now, he's written this letter where he's basically just reported the thing, the event. She's interpreted it in a certain way. He hits the space, and now all of a sudden, bam! Now when he refers to her as my dearest partner of greatness, well, yes, because now we have a common objective. Honey, here's something we can do together. Right? So that's the way I like to think of it, is a relationship that had gotten a little bit rocky, but now we're reinvigorated by this thing. We know that Macbeth, obviously early in the play, becomes morally compromised. I think what escapes notice a little bit is that Banquo follows him. And one of the things the people who are going to die in this play, for the most part, it's because of that kind of thing. It's because of becoming morally compromised, or it's because they make the mistake of assuming that there are lines beyond Macbeth won't go. There are lines beyond which Macbeth won't go. A lot of deaths in this play because people think, well, he's not going to kill his best friend and his best friend's kid. Well, he's not going to murder an innocent woman and her children, undefended. No lines. There are no lines. But Banquo was compromised. Do you see it? I think it's in the scene when it's the first time that we see Macbeth and Lady Macbeth as king and queen. I'm not sure exactly what scene it is in the play. But Banquo is on stage by himself. at the beginning of the scene. And the first thing he says is, "Thou hast it now, king, cawdor, all. As the weird women prophesied, and I fear me, thou playedst most foully for it." He knows. He knows, and he doesn't say. Why doesn't he say? Because he says, "The witches gave something to me too. If their speeches shine upon thee, Macbeth, why shouldn't I hang around and get mine? They said that I wasn't going to be a king, but that my kids and my kids' kids were going to be king." And that's kind of the death sentence for old Banquo right there. Okay, I want to go on to the scene that you've got with you, 1-7. It's my favorite scene of the play because, well, let me ask you this at the outset. Give me some adjectives that we might use to describe Lady Macbeth. What do we think of her in this play? Vicious. Okay, I'll take it. Cold-hearted. Manipulative. That's a good one. Determined. She's very determined. Say it again. Conniving is good. How about brilliant? I think she's brilliant. And this scene I would offer up as Exhibit A, Your Honor. Because here's the problem. Now, getting back to my checklist. Man, I want to see what you do with 1-7. I want to see what you do with 1-7 because I've seen too many productions where Lady Macbeth is just pissed off. What do you mean you won't do it? You said you would do it. What do you do? She's angry. She's angry. And finally he says, "Okay, I'll do it." That's not this scene. So we're gonna look at it because I'm gonna suggest to you that in very short order she is going to run out a myriad of tactics until she finds the winner. Not one thing, not just not just "I'm mad at you," many different things. And then she delivers the knockout punch. And we're going to discover what that is by a process that all actors should be familiar with, which is reverse engineering. When you find the ending, then turn around and walk backwards and say, "How did we get there?" So we'll find what the winning argument is. The scene begins, and here's where I say that I don't advocate for interpretation. The scene begins with one of Macbeth's great soliloquies. And I'm going to say, I think this is one of the most audacious single lines that Shakespeare ever wrote. It's amazing. "If it were done when 'tis done, then 'twere well it were done quickly." Come on, man. 3 uses of the word "done," and they're all different. They're all different. If it were done, meaning completed when 'tis done, accomplished, attended to, then 'twere well it were done, put into action quickly. They're different. It's magnificent. He's got a sonnet where he says, there's a sonnet where he's got a similarly audacious line. He says, "To me, fair friend, you never can be old. For as you were when first your eye I eyed." Come on, man. Come on. You're just showing off now, right? If it were done when 'tis done. So what does he do in this speech? What is the process of this speech? Let's get our context. King has arrived at Macbeth's castle. Macbeth and Lady Macbeth have already basically said he's not going anywhere. That's a great moment, by the way. He says, "Duncan comes here tonight." And she says, "And when goes hence?" He says, "Tomorrow, as he purposes." And she says, "Oh, never shall sun that morrow see." And then she says, "Your face, my thane, is as a book where men may read strange matters. You cannot do that. Put on the poker face, dude. People look at you, they're going to know something's up." None of that. But they've already talked about the killing of the king. Well, now Macbeth, so off stage, maybe we hear, bits and pieces of it, like a door opens and, you hear the audio. Maybe we hear the party going on in the next room. Duncan's there. Imagine the scene. So we've got a big kind of a banquet hall, and we got Duncan in the seat of honor. He's the honored guest. I would say we probably put Macbeth and Lady Macbeth, we would imagine, on either side of him. Maybe. Or maybe we put Lady Macbeth next to him, because he likes her. Let the king, have time with the hostess. Put Macbeth next to her, and then on the other side of the king, imagine that's where Malcolm is sitting, now the Prince of Cumberland. So that every time that Macbeth has to look at Duncan, because it's rude not to look at the king when he's talking, he's got to see that guy. The guy that the king has now said is going to be the successor. That might shake things up a little bit. None of this is in the play, by the way. We're just getting context. But Macbeth shows up by himself, and he has this speech in which he basically talks himself out of it. I'm not going to do it. Right? And he has all the reasons. He starts by saying if the assassination, if all we had to do was kill the guy and that would be the end of it and we could have what we want and there would be no fallout, yeah, we do it. That's not the way it works. He knows that. He says there are consequences both in this world and in the world to come. And he concludes by saying, and by the way, this guy's a good king. He's a good king. Why do I want to kill him? Right? He hath borne his faculties so meek, and then he goes off into the heavens. And he says, we kill this guy. The angels will weep for him. I mean, this is just not good business. Now, the question, the interpretive question here is any part of this overheard? Does Lady Macbeth enter just coincidentally at the end of the speech? Because he has an unfinished line there, right? I have no spur to prick the sides of my intent, but only vaulting ambition, which o'erleaps itself and lands on the other something. But then she's in. It's just like to be or not to be, really. I mean, we know that Claudius and Polonius have bestowed themselves, and we know that they've sent Ophelia out. But sometimes productions will make it very clear that Hamlet is being overheard. Sometimes productions will make it very clear that Lady Macbeth hears some of this, so she knows what she's up against, walking into the room. Why have you left the chamber? He hath almost supped, she says. Macbeth says, hath he asked for me? No. And she says, know you not he has? And then he says, we will proceed no further in this matter. And he goes on to say, look, I'm doing great. He's taking care of me. I have bought golden opinions from all sorts of people that will be mourned now in their newest loss, not cast aside so soon. Okay, now here come the tactics. Help me out here. What is she going to lead with? Was the hope drunk wherein you dressed yourself? Hath it slept since? Let's open with that. What is she up to? Was the hope drunk wherein you dressed yourself? Hath it slept since? What is she saying specifically? Hope. She's saying to him, where is the hopefulness you expressed? You expressed a desire that this would be. Where'd that go? Where'd that go? Hath it slept since and wakes it now? We're still talking about hope, and wakes it now to look so green and pale at what it did so freely. Are you getting cold feet? That's what I would call the first tactical approach. What are you reluctant to do it? Here comes another one. From this time, such I account thy love. What is she saying to him? You're changeable. You're fickle in a way I didn't understand before. So from now on, when you say love things to me, I'm going to remember this, that you say things and then don't do. Okay, Notice that none of these things are moving him yet. Art thou afeard to be the same in thine own act and valor as thou art in desire? It's kind of on the same lines as the first. Where's the follow through? As thou art in desire. You understand that when you desire something, there are things you must do to attain it. Where's that? Where's the setup and the follow through? Wouldst thou have that which thou esteemest, the ornament of life? What's he talking about? I think he's referring specifically to the crown, the throne. Would you have that and live a coward in life? So you want it, but yet you won't do the thing that gets it for you, letting I dare not wait upon I would, like the poor cat in the adage. So in other words, she's saying to him, you say you would have this thing, and then right behind that, you say, I dare not. There's a disconnect between what you say you want and what you apparently are willing to do to attain it. And this gets him prithee peace. Prithee peace. I dare do all that may become a man who dares do more is none. Okay, all right, she can handle that. She plays improv so well. Says, I'm a man. I dare do all that may become a man who dares do more is none. Okay, well, what beast was it then? If you're not, if you weren't a man when you said blah, 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 which now you are kind of taking back, what beast was it then that made you break this enterprise to me? This is something different. Anybody hear it? What beast was it then that made you break this enterprise to me? Why did you share it with me? Why did you get me involved in this? Why did you get me pumped up about this? That was mean of you, right? I think it's slightly different. Now she's kind of coming from, you hurt my feelings, to the nth degree. When you durst do it, then you were a man. Okay, this whole thing about manhood, this is she's getting closer to touching a nerve here. When you durst do it, then you were a man. And to be more than what you were, you would be so much more the man. Let's move on. Nor time or place did then adhere. What does that mean? At the moment that we thought about it, there was no opportunity. Time and place did not adhere. There was, we didn't know that Duncan was going to be here under our roof. And yet you would make both. Time and place did not adhere, and yet you would make both. You were ready to, create the circumstances. They have made themselves. He's right there. He's in the next room, and pretty soon he's going to be in the guest bedroom. They have made themselves, and that, their fitness now does unmake you. Honestly, at the moment when things have completely lined up in our favor for this thing that we thought that we wanted to do, now you are undone by it. What's up with that? Okay, now here it comes. Here it comes. She says, I have given suck. Academics ruin this crap. Academics ruin this stuff. I was talking to Mike earlier. I was helping out with a middle school class. They were reading Julius Caesar. And I was in the room, and I was kind of staging the assassination of Caesar. And I pulled students up there, and I had the conspirators surrounding him. And I said, okay, now you stab him. Okay, now you stab him. And the teacher who's over there, I guess she's feeling kind of left out of the conversation. She goes, no, historically, Caesar was stabbed 57 times. It's like, what did it do? It's not in the play. It's not in the play. Do you know what I mean? Shakespeare probably knew that. He wanted to do it, right? This is why a lot of people hate Shakespeare when they first encounter it. So don't tell me about things that aren't in there. Well, I have given suck is unequivocal. Unequivocal. It's not hypothetical. It's not like if I had ever nursed a child, I would know how overwhelming that feeling is. That's not what she says. She says, I have given suck. Now, the academics would say, well, if you read Holinshed's Chronicles, Lady Macbeth had a child by a former marriage. I don't care. I don't care about that. It's not in the play. Shakespeare was smart. What he put in the play is what I'm prepared to deal with. There was a kid. That's why the opening scene of that film was so great. They were at the funeral of the kid. Think about that. There was a kid. The kid is gone. I don't think there are any more kids coming. This is my supposition. I don't think there are any more kids coming, and we're living at a time when there's no way to know biologically who is incapable of conceiving. No more kids. This is what we got. It's you and me and this barren world, so what's worth having? What's worth having? Titles, power, crowns, thrones. I have given suck and know how tender 'tis to love the babe that milks me. I would, while it was smiling in my face, have plucked my nipple from its boneless gums and dashed the brains out, had I so sworn as you have done to this. And he crumbles. How do I know he crumbles? Looking at the scene. How do I know that that's where he breaks? Because, and this is something you actors, you can take with you and use it in any context. The stuff of drama is conflicting desires. Conflict, right? Conflicting intentions. So in this scene, to just cut it down to the bare bones, he's saying, not going to do it. And she's saying, you got to do it. Not going to do it. You got to do it. Not going to do it. You got to do it. And then he says, will it be okay if we do it? Do you see how he's all of a sudden given up on his agenda, and now he's tracking hers? Now he's tracking hers. She broke him. She broke him. I think that speech is of the utmost importance in this play. When I directed it, I basically wanted Macbeth to be staring at her slack-jawed. Because why? That's the thing we don't talk about. You're not going there. Oh my God, you're going there. Didn't we have an understanding that we weren't going to talk about that? But she's got to win. She's got to win. And here comes the heaviest of the heavy artillery. I would sooner destroy my own child than go back on my word, had I so sworn as you have done to this. And that's what breaks him. That's the reverse engineering part. I'm going to, at the tail end of that speech, I'm going to do this. This happens to me all the time. Oh, there it is. That's why I always have to have a stage manager. It's like, where did I leave my script? What's his line after she says, as you have done to this? Okay. Here's another one for me. Here's another one for me that I am particularly attuned to. Now, in the version that you are looking at, I think they've got it right. What goes in there? I have seen that line. I'm sorry. No, that's not right. That's not right. That's what he says. That's not the one I'm talking about. He says if we should fail, and I think it is a question, and then she says, okay, This is what I'm looking for. What's the punctuation that goes in there? Now, you've got a question mark. I think that's right. I think that's right. I have seen it punctuated with period. I've seen it punctuated with an exclamation mark. I've seen it punctuated with double dashes, semicolon. I think this one's right. And there's a difference. There's a difference. Imagine if we put either a period or an exclamation mark there. Actually, anything really but a question mark. Again, think about the nature of classical tragedy. If he says, if we should fail, and she says we fail, right? If you do that, then this becomes the answer to the question, regardless of what she's going to say next. This is responsive if you put a period on it. If we should fail, we fail. Hey, we took a shot. Didn't work out. You know, maybe we're at the mercy of forces beyond our control, maybe. But if you do this, it's completely different. If we should fail, we fail. Are you serious with that stuff? She has to restate the question. It's so bizarre. It's so ludicrous. We fail, and then you need the next part to complete the thought. But screw your courage to the sticking place, and we'll not fail. You see where we are now? We're right in that realm of Shakespearean tragedy that I talked about at the beginning. It's up to us. If we do what we do, we are the agents here. If we do, failure won't happen. So that's why I think that's important. But, you know, anytime you pick up a modern edition of Shakespeare, some editor has decided what goes there. And, you know, some are better than others. And like I say, I've seen all the various options. Okay. You know what this always reminds me of? Anybody familiar with Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf? We know this play, right? Every time I think about the never-present, once-upon-a-time breastfed Macbeth child, I always think about the kid in Virginia Woolf, right? Because that's the heavy artillery. That's how George breaks Martha. It's the thing that we don't talk about in public, right? Don't go there. You're going there. Oh my God. Because the rule's very simple in Virginia Woolf. Whatever either of them say is the truth going forward. You can't undo. You can't. Oh, I don't like that one. So I always think that maybe Albee was flashing on this a little bit when he created that. Okay, let's move on. Let's talk about the scene I referred to earlier when I was talking about a witch making Lady Macbeth faint. Well, let's talk about that scene. So, how does Shakespeare engineer it? Well, he's very clever, first of all, because he's got both Macbeth and Lady Macbeth out there, you know, up to their elbows in blood. And all of a sudden we get the drunken porter. Okay, well, comic relief in tragedies, we're kind of used to that. But the other expedient of it is that Lady Macbeth and Macbeth have to clean up. When we see them next, they better not, right? They better not be bloody, right? So that's, you know, that's something for the actors to do. Drunken porter does his thing, imagining himself to be the porter of Hellgate, which is pretty apt. And then we get the arrival of Macduff and I think it's Lennox. It's one of those Scottish lords that are hard to keep straight. But I think Macduff and Lennox are the two lords that show up because Macduff has been appointed by Duncan to be the wake-up call. They got to hit the road, right? They've only stopped at Macbeth's castle for a night because it's like a convenient midway point between there and Duncan's castle. Brief, bawdy, comedic interaction between Macduff and Lennox and the drunken porter, and then here comes Macbeth. Right. And Macduff says, is the king awake? Macbeth says, no, I haven't seen him. Macbeth says, well, I'm going to go wake him up because he told me to get him on the road early today. And Macbeth says, yeah, it's right up there. I mean, I think Macbeth is already acting a little bit weird. But, so Macduff goes upstairs. Macduff and Lennox both, I suppose. Maybe not, because Lennox has to tell, Lennox has to tell Macbeth about how, rotten the weather was last night, which leads to one of the funniest lines in Shakespeare, I think. Anyone know where I'm at? Where we, blah, 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 blah. Okay, here's what Lennox says. The night has been unruly. Where we lay, our chimneys were blown down. And as they say, lamentings heard in the air, strange screams of death, and prophesying with accents terrible of dire combustion and confused events new hatched to the woeful time. The obscure bird clamored the livelong night. Some say the earth was feverish and did shake. That's pretty good stuff, right? I mean, that's a pretty good demonstration of Shakespeare in the tragedies, showing how the natural world responds to heinous acts of men. But Macbeth's response to that is, it was a rough night. I think that's hilarious. I think that's very funny. Yeah. Well, because he's distracted. He's listening to Lennox, but he's got one eye on the stairway, right? Because, Macduff's got to come down those stairs any moment now. And here he comes. I played Macduff. For my money, that's maybe the hardest role in Shakespeare. Hardest role in Shakespeare. Because not once, but twice, he has to go from 0 to 1 billion in the blink of an eye, emotionally. This is the first. What do you do with that? He disappears and then he comes back on stage, going off about, the scene of carnage that he encountered. The others in Act 4, Scene 3, which I'll get to. Okay, so Macduff has the news. Macbeth runs up the stairs, right? Oh, you're kidding me. I have to see this for myself. Off he goes. He didn't actually say that. Bells are ringing. Like I say, people coming on stage, pulling on their pants. And then Macbeth re-enters. And he's speaking a strange language here. He's making very strange sounds. Everything is kind of overblown poetically. Had I but died an hour before this time, I'd lived a blessed time. It's like, didn't tell us what you saw. Had I but died an hour before this chance, I had lived a blessed time. And then here come Malcolm and Donalbain, Duncan's 2 kids. What's the matter? What is amiss? And Macbeth says, you are, and do not know it. And here he goes again. Malcolm and Donalbain, where are they? Macbeth says, Donalbain says, what is amiss? Macbeth, you are and do not know it. The spring, the head, the fountain of your blood is stopped. The very source of it is stopped, and Macduff's heard enough. He pushes right past me and he says, your father's dead, right? Your dad's been murdered. What's the matter with you, man? He doesn't say that. But it's important. It's important because Macduff's about to do something here that I think is critically important. Here's another one for the checklist. Now, see, Lady Macbeth, when she was telling her husband why the plot was going to work out, she said, we're gonna get those 2 bodyguard guys drunk as hell. They won't know what's going on. We're gonna murder the king with their daggers, and then we're gonna leave the daggers with them. We're gonna smear them with blood so that when the scene is discovered, everyone's going to make the logical conclusion that they did it. Okay. So here's Lennox proving that Lady Macbeth was exactly right about the fallout from the murder. Lennox says, well, Malcolm says, oh, by whom? Macduff says, your royal father's murdered. Oh, by whom? And Lennox says, those of his chamber, as it seemed, had done it. Their hands and faces were all badged with blood. So were their daggers, which unwiped we found upon their pillows. They stared and were distracted. No man's life was to be trusted with them. Beautiful. Beautiful. He just absolutely tracked what Lady Macbeth said was going to happen. And then Macbeth says, oh, yet I do repent me of my fury that I did kill them. Now, when Macbeth says that, where do you suppose my focus is going to go? I want to see what Lady Macbeth makes of that. Okay, I'm interested, because that's got to be a shocker for everybody. That wasn't part of the plan. That was never spoken of. But you know who I'm really interested in? Is Macduff. Because what's his next line? Anybody know? He says to Macbeth, wherefore did you so? Why did you do that? Why did you do that? These guys are peons. What are you trying to tell me? You are the master soldier of our time, and you lost your composure to the point where you wiped out two undefended underlings, who, by the way, are the only people who can tell us why they committed this act? Doesn't make any sense at all. Wherefore did you so? And Mike remembers. I mean, for me, I put Macbeth right in the middle of the stage, and Macduff was the first one. Macbeth says, oh, yet I do repent me of my fury that I did kill them. Macduff's head is the first to turn. But why did you do that? And then every head turned. He's in the middle, and all eyes on him. You better have a good answer for this one. And here he goes again. He starts to spew. Who can be wise, amazed, temperate, blah, blah, blah. He starts to lose it. He's burying himself. And then Lady Macbeth faints. Perfectly reasonable to ask whether she actually faints or whether she... Because the heat is on, right? Now, we know that she's capable of doing this because she's going to do it again in the scene where Macbeth is visited by the ghost of Banquo. She's going to have to save him. She's going to have to get in between him and the people who are starting to understand the import of what he's saying. But this is the first instance. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, like I say, I don't have a, whether she faints because she is overwhelmed by, the fact that all of a sudden he's brought all this scrutiny upon himself, or whether she very cagily swoons in order to, get the attention off him. But, yeah. Okay. Any questions or observations about anything we've touched on thus far? There's a scene that happens immediately after. So, you know how this scene concludes? They all say, let's put on manly readiness and meet in the hall together. So all the lords are going to meet and figure out what happens next. The very next scene in the play is a curious scene. It's Act 2, Scene 4. Enter Ross and an old man. Okay. Ross is not he's the what is he? Is he a duke of something? He's not a thane. He's not of their station. So he's not invited to the manly readiness party. He's not in there. He's outside talking to the old man. And the old man is saying, hey, I'm really old, but this nonsense that's going on today, like right now it's noon and it's dark like it's midnight. Something's up. I've never seen this before. And they're talking about horses going wild and eating each other. I mean, there's some crazy cataclysmic stuff going on out there in the world. And Macduff comes out. And the scene between Ross and Macduff, this is a scene that I think that a lot of productions treat as merely expositional, right? Who's the king now? Well, it's Macbeth. Where have the Duncan's kids gone? Well, they've gone here. There's so much more going on here. I like to refer to this as the Pinter scene in Macbeth, because a lot is going on that is not verbalized. But, I mean, whatever you're going to make of Ross, he is a guy who's always got his finger in the air to see which way the prevailing winds are blowing. He wants to be on the side that's winning. And what's important here is the exchange between Ross and Macduff. Ross says to Macduff, "How goes the world, sir, now?" And Macduff says, "Why, see you not?" And that can be a reference to, the dark at noon. I mean, how goes the world? Duh. Ross says, "Is it known who did this more than bloody deed?" And Macduff's response is, "Those that Macbeth has slain." Okay, does he mean it? Is he scoffing at that idea? I think that a lot of what Macduff says in this scene, he's just kind of saying, that's what they say in there. Who did the deed? Those that Macbeth has slain. But why I call it the Pinter scene is that we're playing poker here. I'm not going to tell you everything I think. You tell me what you think. Alas today, says Ross, what good could they pretend? In other words, what did they have to gain? The two drunken bodyguard guys. Macduff says they were suborned. Someone put him up to it. Malcolm and Donalbain, the king's two sons, are stolen away and fled, which puts on them suspicion of the deed. See, that's what they're saying in the room. The two kids must be behind it because they cut and run. Now, we know that's not true, right? Because in the madness scene, the scene right after the murder is discovered, we see Malcolm and Donalbain. They have a little conversation, and they pretty much agree, if somebody killed Dad, they're probably coming after us. We should leave soon. So Donalbain goes to Ireland, and Malcolm goes to England, where we will encounter him later in the play. But that's why they went. They were afraid that they were the next targets, not because they were trying to avoid suspicion. Ross says, then 'tis most like the sovereignty will fall upon Macbeth. And Macduff says he is already named and gone to Scone to be invested. Okay, that's news for us. That's what happened in the room. Everybody kind of by acclamation said, you ought to be the king now, Macbeth. And so he is. Now listen to this. Ross says, where is Duncan's body? Macduff says, carried to the Colmkill, the sacred storehouse of his predecessors and guardians of their bones. And Ross says, will you to Scone? And Macduff says, no, cousin, I'll to Fife. What's going on here? What's going on here? Scone is where the coronation is. Ross says to Macduff, are you going to the crowning party? And Macduff says, no, cousin, I'll to Fife. That's where he lives. He's the Thane of Fife. I'm going home. This is the beginning of the open rebellion. Macduff is first. It's critically important, right? And Ross, so that's basically a challenge. When Macduff says to Ross, no, cousin, I'll to Fife. And Ross says, yeah, well, you know what? I'm going to go to Scone. I'm going to go to the king's thing. Macduff says, well, may you see things well done there. Good luck. Good luck, man. I don't think you're betting on the right horse, but good luck. And there they go. There they go. But that's the first sign of open rebellion, that scene, which is often, just like I say, treated like exposition. Okay, here's a question for you. Now, Lady Macbeth will disappear from the play for a certain period of time. It's intentional. Again, this is say what you want about Shakespeare, but his sense of structure is unparalleled. So she actually leaves our consciousness for a certain period of time only to reappear in the sleepwalking scene. And I would suggest that her appearance in that scene should be startling, right? Whatever we remember of what she looked like when last we saw her, she should be, a shambles of that now. Just wrecked. When does it start? When does the disintegration for Lady Macbeth, when does it begin? Where's that arc have its inception? I think it's pretty early. I mean, she's nothing but balls in 1/7, right? Nothing but we're gonna do it, yeah. And even in the murder scene, when he comes down the stairs, right? Okay, listen to this. Because he's up doing the deed, and she says, okay, so Macbeth sees the imaginary dagger, right? Is this a dagger I see before me? Another great soliloquy. Do we put the dagger in the space? Do we actually try to represent the dagger? Or is it just his imagination? Interpretation. I didn't want to fly a dagger around there. I think that's kind of cheesy. We went for some kind of like flickering light sound effect sort of thing, but I've seen it done effectively both ways. So he says, I go and it is done. The bell invites me. Hear it not, Duncan, for it is a knell that summons thee to heaven or to hell. And he's off to do the murder. Boom. She's on stage. Light change, right? She's on stage. That which hath made them drunk hath made me bold. What hath quenched them hath given me fire. Hark! Peace. It was the owl that shrieked. The blah, 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 blah. Okay. And then he starts coming down the stairs. And they have their exchange. And she says at one point, wait a second. Oh, no. She's still by herself on stage. She says, Alack, I am afraid they have awaked, and 'tis not done. The attempt and not the deed confounds us. Hark! I laid their daggers ready. He could not miss them. And then she says the most curious thing. Had he not resembled my father as he slept, I had done it. You get it? That's out of left field. Lady Macbeth says, she's waiting for him to complete the task, and she says, if he didn't look so much like my dad, I'd have killed him. There's already something traveling through there that's a little bit weird. Okay, he comes down the stairs, he's covered in blood, and then she sees something that she wasn't counting on, which is what? Daggers. He brought the daggers with him. Why did you bring the daggers from the place? They must lie there. There's it. Why did you bring the daggers from the place? They must lie there. Go carry them and smear the sleepy grooms with blood. He says, I'll go no more. I'm afraid to think what I have done. Look upon it again. I dare not. And she grabs the daggers and she goes, I'll do it. And off she goes. Okay, so she's still got grit. Let me flash forward. It's funny that Macbeth and Lady Macbeth, they have almost companion speeches when they are first seen by themselves as king and queen, not together, but by themselves. They both have little soliloquies that kind of say, this is not as good as I thought it was going to be. like Macbeth says, to be thus is nothing. But to be safely thus, that would be good. But to do that, I have to kill more people, pretty much. To be thus is nothing but to be safely thus. Okay. And then he has his attendant, Satan, if you like. I mean, it's pronounced that way sometimes. Satan. He says, are those guys waiting to see me? Yeah, they are. We don't know what he's talking about. And then they come in, and these are the two murderers. And apparently they've already met once, because Macbeth says, have you thought about what we talked about yesterday? Because he's trying to persuade them that Banquo is their enemy, and that they should therefore kill Banquo. And he talks them into it. He pretty much insults them a lot. And they say, okay, we'll do it. So listen to this. The murderers leave. That's Act 3, Scene 1. Act 3, Scene 2. Enter Lady Macbeth and a servant, probably Satan. I mean, I think it's pretty conventional that all these servant roles get combined into one sort of all-purpose Macbeth hanger-on. Lady Macbeth says to the servant guy, is Banquo gone from court? And he says, aye, madam, but returns again tonight. And listen to this. She says, say to the king, I would attend his leisure for a few words. What's that? What's that? What happened to the dearest partner of greatness stuff? Now she's asking permission to speak to the king. Okay? I mean, where are we? Where are we on the arc? And then she has the opportunity to speak to the king, and he has another one of his great speeches. She says, you're consumed with this. Why are you thinking about this stuff? It's done. It's done. We got what we wanted, right? What's done is done, she says. And he says, we have scotched the snake, not killed it. Scotched, scorched. You'll see it various ways. He's saying it's not over yet. Not over yet. We've scotched the snake, somehow like scored it with some kind of a knife. And he says, she goes, your guests are coming tonight. We're having a big party. And he says, oh yeah, the party. Make sure during the party that you keep talking about Banquo and wondering when he's going to show up. Right? I mean, we know that Banquo is, the target of this murder plot. She doesn't know that. She says, oh, full of scorpions is my mind, dear wife. Thou knowest that Banquo and his fleance live. She knows the prophecies, so she knows that Banquo and his line are going to be kings, and the Macbeths, they're going to have this brief reign and then it's over. She says, but in them nature's copies not etern. And he says, there's comfort yet, they are assailable. Then be thou jocund. This is the part that I think is really significant. He says, ere the bat hath flown his cloistered flight, ere to black Hecate's summons the shard-bone beetle with his drowsy hums hath rung night's yawning peal, there shall be done a deed of dreadful note. And she says, what's to be done? What are you planning to do? And what does he say? Well, I've sent a couple of guys out to ambush Banquo. We'll take care of this. She says, what's to be done? And he says, be innocent of the knowledge, dearest Chuck, till thou applaud the deed. Anybody want to take a shot at paraphrasing that? It's none of your effing business what I'm doing. That's where it begins. You understand? I mean, these two people are carrying this enormous burden of guilt. I think that Lady Macbeth is okay up until the moment where it becomes hers alone. She can't. She can't on her own. This is where it begins. He is absolutely freezing her out. What's to be done? He might even take a beat. Should I tell her? Nah. Ask me tomorrow. Be innocent of the knowledge, dearest Chuck. I'm only aware of one other place in Shakespeare where he uses that term as between married persons. It's in Othello. And believe me, when Othello says it to Desdemona, he is not meaning it as a compliment. I think it's not good. Be innocent of the knowledge, dearest Chuck, till thou applaud the deed. You'll find out soon enough. But I think that's very bad for her. I think it's very bad for her. She has to ask permission to talk to him. He's not telling her what he's doing. He's gone, down that path. He's on the path of paranoia, and she's on the path of, suffering under this immense burden of guilt. Okay, I got one more thing in the play that I want to talk about. And this is a scene that some productions they'll cut entirely. If not, they will truncate it to the point where it's almost unrecognizable. It's Act 4, Scene 3. It's a long scene, and it's a wordy scene. But for me, it's really important for a couple of reasons, and it's one of the most resonant scenes in the play. As because why do we like Shakespeare at all? We like him because there's universality in these things. We see ourselves and the way that we live in some of the stuff that he was writing 450 some odd years ago. So consider Act 4, Scene 3. We're in England. We have left Scotland. We're in England. And Macduff is in England. And why has he gone to England? Well, because that's where Malcolm is hanging out. So Macduff has gone to visit Malcolm at the English court to try to recruit him to come back. Dude, you are the rightful king. If you return to Scotland, everyone will rally behind you. We can take this guy down. Come on, man. Come on. Now, unbeknownst to Macduff, his timing was a little bit off kilter, because as soon as he left Scotland for England, Macbeth sent murderers to Macduff's castle and wiped out his wife and children. Again, you make the mistake of assuming that even a guy as bad as Macbeth is not going to kill defenseless women and children. Oops. But Macduff doesn't know that yet. So he comes to try to recruit Malcolm. And Malcolm puts him through this most outrageous, I want to use the word catechism. I hope I'm using it correctly. But it's a test. It's a test. And Malcolm says, yeah, I think things are bad in Scotland. I'm hearing some reports. And Macduff is saying, you have no idea. You have no idea. It's so bad. But you can fix it. You come back, we can muster enough support to overcome Macbeth. And Malcolm says to Macduff, yeah, that's great. We can probably do that. But problem is that when Macbeth is gone, there's going to be someone following behind him who's even worse. And Macduff can't believe his ears. He says, who? Who could that possibly be? And Malcolm says, well, it's me. It's me I'm talking about. And I mean, honestly, that would be the right reaction. Come on, right? Thou pulled my leg. And what does Malcolm say? It evolves in 3 stages. But what I want you to think about is, think about and I don't mean like just today, right now. I mean like in the last quarter century, half a century. Think about the political landscape of our country. Macduff's trying to recruit a guy that could help to take down Macbeth. And Malcolm says, I would be worse. And Macduff says, that's not possible. And Malcolm says, well, consider this. I'm like this ultimate sex addict. I am just a fiend. I will jump on anything that moves, basically. Your wives, your daughters, your mistresses, and your maids could not fill up the cistern of my lust, is what he says, right? So he says, are you ready for that? Because that's what I am, okay? I'm that guy. And Macduff says, okay, well, that's not good. That's not good, but you know what? God, come on back. We'll deal with that. We'll deal with that. And he actually kind of like, sets himself up as a bit of a pimp in this scene. He says, I mean, get this, it's a little creepy. He says, okay, all right, let me get Malcolm. He goes, but there is no bottom, none, in my voluptuousness. Your wives, your daughters, your matrons, and your maids could not fill up the cistern of my lust. And my desire, all continent impediments would o'erbear that did oppose my will. Better Macbeth than such a one to reign. And Macduff says, well, that's a problem, but fear not yet to take upon you what is yours. You may convey your pleasures in a spacious plenty, and yet seem cold, right? Just kind of behave yourself publicly. The time you may so hoodwink. Listen to this. Macduff says to Malcolm, we have willing dames enough. There cannot be that vulture in you to devour so many as will to greatness dedicate themselves, finding it so inclined. Right? We'll get you groupies. They'll be into it. It'll be okay. All right, Malcolm's not done. Okay, I mean, because basically, Macduff, you just moved the goalposts. You just said, that's a bad deal, but we'll put up with it. And then Malcolm says, yeah, but you know what else? With this, there grows in my most ill-composed affection such a stanchless avarice that I'm greed guy too. Did I mention? I'm sex guy and I'm greed guy. There grows in my most ill-composed affection such a stanchless avarice that were I king, I should cut off the nobles for their lands, desire his jewels and that other's house, and my more having would be as a sauce to make me hunger more, that I should forge quarrels unjust against the good and loyal, destroying them for wealth. And what does Macduff say? Oh, that's worse. Oh, God, okay, but wait, you know what? You know what? We can still work it out. We can. Scotland, he says, Scotland hath foisons to fill up your will of your mere own. You're the king. You basically own all the stuff anyway. All these are portable, he says. We can deal with this stuff with other virtues weighed. So we've got this image now. We've got the scales. And right now, Malcolm is down here. He says, give me something good. All these are portable with other virtues weighed. Tell me what you're good at. Other virtues weighed. And Malcolm says, I have none. But I have none. The king becoming graces, get this list. The king becoming graces as justice, verity, temperance, stableness, bounty, perseverance, mercy, lowliness, devotion, patience, courage, fortitude. I have no relish of them, but delight, but abound in the division of each several crime, acting in many ways. Nay, had I power, I should uproar the universal peace, confound all unity on earth. Got nothing for you. How do you like me now? And finally, Macduff's had enough. He goes, that's it. We're all doomed. Scotland's doomed. You were the guy. Obviously, you're not now the guy. And now I'm a man without a country. I don't know what I'm supposed to do now. And he's about to leave. You know, Malcolm has a line here where he says, if such a one be fit to govern, he says to Macduff, if such a one be fit to govern, speak, I am as I have spoken. And I actually, when I directed it, I had Macduff pull out the knife, and he had the kid on the ground with the knife at the throat. And he says, fit to govern, no, not to live. Not to live. He says, your mother and your father were saints on earth. Where the fuck did you come from? Sorry. Sorry, Facebook. He says, the apple fell too far from the tree here. You're a disgrace to everything that your mother and your father, blah, 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 blah. And then he starts to leave, and what does Malcolm do? He says, I was kidding. I'm kidding. I was kidding. I was kidding. And he says, Macbeth, ever since I've shown up here in England, he's been trying to get at me. I can't trust anybody. I'm sorry. I had to push that hard to get so that I could be fully trusting of where you're coming from. But now I know you're righteous. He goes, I didn't mean any of what I said. And he kind of tracks back through that stuff. He goes, I'm yet unknown to woman. I don't even covet that which is my own. So he takes it all back. Takes it all back. I think that scene I think it's gorgeous, and I think it's really important. And did you see why I say it's resonant? This whole idea that we'll put up with, like grossly imperfect leaders as long as our side is winning. Right? Doesn't that sound a little familiar? I mean, Macduff is there kind of as a kingmaker. We'll put up with that, we'll put up with that. That's too far. That's too much. So that's their scene. That's 4-3. It's often cut way down. I'd rather look for stuff to cut elsewhere in the play and do that one almost in its entirety. And when that scene concludes between Malcolm and Macduff is just like, his head is spinning. He actually says, Malcolm says to him, I just took everything back. How come you're not saying anything? And Macduff says, such welcome and unwelcome things at once, 'tis hard to reconcile. I don't know. What day is this? And here comes Ross. Ross is now in England. And this is a very curious exchange. Because what is Ross really there to do? Now, if you saw Polanski, Ross was actually in on the Macduff family murder plot. It's weird. I remember the first time I saw it, it was like, what the hell was that? Like, he has the scene with Lady Macduff, where Lady Macduff is saying, why did my husband leave us unprotected? And Ross says, you don't know what you're talking about. Your husband is a smart guy. He knows what he's doing. And then at the end of the scene, Ross, he walked out, and then you saw him looking to something off screen, and he nods, and the murderers come in. Whoa! That was unexpected. But he was pissed. In the Polanski film, which I really recommend, I mean, as filmmakers move stuff from page to screen, they're having to make all kinds of decisions. I think he makes so many smart decisions in that film. That was a weird one, but okay. But in the film, he'd already kind of laid the groundwork, because he set Ross up as a guy who had expectations. He expected promotion, and he kept getting overlooked. So when, for example, when Duncan hands the Thane of Cawdor medallion to Ross and says, yeah, give that to Macbeth, you could see Ross kind of going, when do I get mine, So Ross comes in. Malcolm, Macduff, and Ross. And of course, Malcolm and Macduff immediately say, how's it going in Scotland? Oh, it's not good. Well, what's going on? And Macduff says to him, listen to this. How does my wife? And Ross says, why, well. And Macduff says, and all my children? Well, too. And then he says, Macduff says, the tyrant hath not battered at their peace? And Ross says, they were well at peace when I did leave them. So my question is, and what I look to see how people solve, because it's a puzzler, why does Ross wait as long as he does in this scene before revealing what he obviously knows coming in. He knows that Macbeth's family is gone, wiped out. But he doesn't deliver that as like a high agenda item. Maybe he doesn't. He's afraid to say it. Maybe he can't. Maybe he feels some complicity, or at least that he should have been closer to the scene to do so. I don't know what the reason is. I really don't. But he doesn't tell until the moment in the scene where Malcolm says, "We're coming home. We're coming home." And what's more, the king here is giving us 10,000 soldiers. So we're coming back with an army, right? So tell people to take comfort. And Ross says, "Would I could answer this comfort with the like, but I have words that would be howled out in the desert air, where hearing should not latch them." And Macduff is right on him. He goes, "What do you mean? You got bad news? Is it just like general bad news, or is it pointed towards anybody in particular?" And Ross says, "No mind that's honest, but in it shares some woe, though the main part belongs to you alone." Macduff says, "If it be mine, keep it not from me. Quickly let me have it." And Ross says, "Let not your ears despise my tongue forever, which shall possess them with the heaviest sound that ever yet they heard." And Macduff's line, it's spelled differently in different editions. In this edition that I'm looking at here, Ross says, "I got really bad news for you," and Macduff's line is hum, H-U-M with an exclamation mark. Hum. I mean, it's almost like a guttural thing, I think. He says, "I guess at it." And then Ross actually comes with the news. And it's not pretty. It's not pretty. Your castle is surprised. Your wife and babes savagely slaughtered. To relate the manner were on the quarry of these murdered deer to have the death of you. This is the second part in the play where Macduff has to go to unimaginable emotional places in the blink of an eye. How do you process that? I have no idea. I played it. I have no idea how you do that. But I can tell you this, and maybe this anecdote will be the wrap-up here. When I played Macduff, we got to this scene in the play, and I was aware that it was kind of looming on the horizon. I didn't quite know what I would do with it. But we got to it, and when you get to stuff like that, you just take a shot, you wait for feedback, and then you build on it. So I basically went, and I basically tore a passion to tatters, is what I did. I just, thrashed around and yelled and screamed a lot. The actor who played Macbeth in that production, his name was David Cesarini. He was a very, very good actor. Although, I will say, he was one of those actors that like to kind of really be in the character. So at the end of the play, when I had to square off with him for the sword fight, and we were holding broadswords that probably weighed 25 pounds, I would look into his eyes and I would kind of think, "David? David, you know it's me, right? You remember that we're kind of faking it." Yeah, we didn't have any problem there. The curse did not arise at that point. But David did something that I've always remembered as an actor. Because actor to actor is always very dicey, right? We know this. I mean, it's kind of the unspoken law of the theater. We're all peers. We don't coach one another. It's not our job. If you've got something that you think an actor should be doing and is not doing, you speak to the director, because actors have vocabulary with the director, and that's the voice that they should hear when direction is being given. Well, in a very benign way, David approached me one night and he said, "Have a look at this." And he handed me the pages that were copied from his facsimile version of the first folio. And he handed me the pages of that scene, this scene with Macduff learning of the murder of his family. So it wasn't even a scene that Macbeth was in. And so I was puzzled for a moment, but then I started to look at it, and I got it immediately. I got it immediately. If you look at the first folio version of this scene, well, let me say it this way. Let me come at it from the opposite direction. If you look at any modern edition of this scene, you will see this all over the scene. That's what modern editors want to give you in this scene. And that's how I took my cue to kind of go big and blustery, and in the folio printing, nary an exclamation mark. And I thought, oh my gosh, that's right. I thought, that's right. This is not yelling and screaming. This is the guy who's just taken the 2x4 across the skull. And I went that way. Because that's where he comes from. He keeps coming back to Ross and saying, all my children, all my little chickens at one fell swoop. It's almost babble. So, right? That was resonant for me, and it kind of took me in a direction. And again, it's interpretation, but it took me in a direction that was much more fruitful for me. All right. That's kind of what I have to say about this play. I love this play. I mean, anytime I hear about a production of this play happening. Oh, I didn't share with you the Denzel Washington Howler. Let's finish on a light note. So, in the scene in the play where it begins with Banquo saying, Macbeth, he has a little soliloquy. I think you played foul for the throne. Okay, and then here come Macbeth and Lady Macbeth. Oh, here's our chief guest. You're going to be at the party tonight, right? Oh yeah, I'll be at the party. So, and Macbeth says to Banquo, are you going for a horseback ride? Is that what you're doing this afternoon? And Banquo goes, yeah, I'm going riding. Okay, well, how long are you going to be out? I don't know. I'll be out till time to come back for your party. Okay, we'll see you. He says, well, is your son going with you? Yeah, Fleance is going along. In the script, the last thing that Macbeth says to Banquo is, I wish your horses swift and sure of foot, and so I commend you to their backs. I wish your horses swift and sure of foot, and so I commend you to their backs. There he goes again. That's a weird way of saying, have a nice ride, right? But Denzel, who ought to know better, this is not his first rodeo, we all saw him in Much Ado About Nothing. He knows Shakespeare. He said, I wish your horses swift and sure of foot, and so I commend them to your backs. That's a great image, isn't it? It's like Banquo and Fleance going, oh, you guys comfortable? But how did that get through? It's a movie. How did nobody get that? It blew my mind. I'm like hitting the pause button going, did he just say it? And so I commend them to your backs. Good luck. That'll save me money on murderers. And speaking of which, do you know that in the scene where Banquo is ambushed in the night? So we saw Macbeth negotiating with the two murderers. In the actual murder scene, who is it? Who's the third murderer? The other two murderers say, but who did bid thee join with us? And whoever it is says, Macbeth. Like, you got a problem? No. Okay, 3's better than 2. Who is it? Man, this one runs the gamut. A lot of productions, Seaton or Satan. Kind of makes sense. He's a trusted Macbeth guy. And so Macbeth, right after the two other murderers left, he probably calls Satan and says, these guys might not stay on task. You be there too. I've seen it be Macbeth. I've seen it be Lady Macbeth. I've seen it be one of the witches. Where else could we go? But it's weird. He just pops up. Who did bid thee join with us? Macbeth. All right. Questions, observations, anything about this play at all? No? Yes, Sid, please.
I think I might have missed it, but you were going to talk about Mike Murdoch as the doctor.
What can I tell you? What can I say, really?
I heard a lot about it.
Well, you don't often think that the doctor will be the focal point of any production. Who even played the nurse? Who was the nurse in that scene? Liz Vedas? Yeah, you know, he's not an uninteresting guy. I mean, not Mike. I mean the doctor. He's not, you know, because he kind of has some stones. Because Macbeth goes after him. Canst thou not minister to a mind disease? And he's, no, not really. That's something they have to do.
He has a neat prose to verse flip too.
Yeah, and then he's gone.
Yeah.
And then he's gone. He's, you know, this is not going the right way.
You did a nice thing in that too. I don't remember if we did it or not, but you specifically had me in the dinner scene
Yeah, I was in that.
to watch for my own, for like nobody's paying attention to the doctor in that scene.
Right.
But to observe the fall of, or the fall of Sam
Right.
in that scene between all that too. It was,
So you had a little context going into the sleepwalking scene. Yeah. All right. Anything else? Okay. Yeah. Thanks. Thanks for hanging out. Appreciate it. Yeah, and you know, thanks to Mike and Nora and everybody at the festival for having me back.
Is there a, I'll just keep talking on here, still running around. Is there any, how do we feel about Malcolm taking over the end?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's right. I think it's right. He's the rightful king, for one thing, and he makes all the right sounds. I mean, I think you've got to be a little bit careful about importing clever stuff at the end of a play. Like my friend Leslie Rydell, my old teacher, whom I consulted just to pick his brain about this play in anticipation of this event. Leslie, one of his favorite sayings was, "Beware of brilliant ideas." Beware of brilliant ideas. Because there are things you think about that might give you some kind of a short-term return, but they can't carry the day, you know. So, yeah, I think it's appropriate. I mean, Malcolm's final speech in Macbeth is really no different from Edgar's final speech in Lear. You know.
I think that's what's interesting about it. Like, if you look at Malcolm, Fortinbras, Edgar, Octavius Caesar, yeah, like it's interesting to see that how that sort of comes around. Whether it's a positive thing when that person takes over, or
Yeah.
not, or
Yeah, not. It's just like here comes the first baby step on the road to restoring order. You know, there's much to be done. You know, Edgar says as much. You know, but there's much to be done, but here's where it begins. I think that's right. Now, I don't know if you recall, but see, there's something in this play, and it may have to do with the fact that that I played Macduff some years before I directed the play. But to me, Macduff's story lacks punctuation. Now, I think that from the moment that he gets the news about his family's slaughter, he is as single-minded as a person can be. He wants revenge and only revenge. That's it. You know, just put me within arm's length of Macbeth. If he escaped, then heaven forgive him too, or whatever that line is. That's what he is. He becomes like Malcolm's attack dog on a leash. And when they get close to the castle, he unclips the clasp and there he goes. So after Macduff kills Macbeth, I felt like there's something we want to do here, because he's got nothing. What's he got now? There's no motivation. There's no life ambition remaining for this poor guy. So what I did, because we brought out the head on a stick. Got to do it. Shakespeare wanted it. I mean, when I played Macduff, we had a pretty good head on a stick, and we were playing for a lot of high school audiences. They thought it was the funniest thing ever. And the director said, "I want to cut it," and I said, "Please don't." I mean, let's stick it up there and take what comes. If that's the way they're going to respond to it, we'll weather it. But it has to be. Behold, but he said, what is the behold where stands the accursed, tyrant's head? Hey, what are you going to do? Cut that line? No. So head on a stick. And what I did at the end of the play was Malcolm made his speech. He said, I'm going to make you all earls or whatever. You're all going to be titled now. We're going to start to rebuild. And they exited the stage. And what was left I had a light on the Macbeth head, and I had a light on Macduff, who was, like kneeling on the stage, head down, below the Macbeth head. And that was the last thing that was illuminated. And then those lights all went out. I mean, because I think, to me, it's like, restoration, but not everybody gets accommodated here. Not everybody gets accommodated. And I wanted just a little bit of, punctuation for the end of that guy's journey. Yeah. But God, there are as many ways to attack this thing as there are people to think about it. Okay, great.
We have more forms for everybody to fill out.
Good.
Thank you, Rich. That was awesome. Thank you very much.